Hello, my name is Carl Surrey and this is a video tutorial for the Facebook group called Fans of Serif Software. This tutorial is going to be an adaptation of an Affinity Designer tutorial, and it was one that was sort of pointed out to me by John Harris, and it was made for another Facebook group which is called Affinity Designer and Photo Group, which I must admit I didn't even know existed, and I have just applied to join, and as you can see, I'm awaiting permission to join the group. But someone made a video for this group, and it is all about using symbols and grouping them together and doing things and sort of overlapping these circles. The only trouble with the video is there's no commentary, and it does move around the screen a bit quick and it's very hard to follow, and John was having trouble following it, so he contacted the person who made it, who I believe his name is Crowe, and Rich has given his permission for me to sort of recreate this, but with a commentary, and sort of hopefully sort of slow it down a bit and make it a bit easier to follow. Now there will be some slight alterations, because there's even some bits in this that I don't understand how he's doing it exactly, but I can recreate it in a different way. But I've paused the video at that point and I will come back to that in a minute. So let me go back to Affinity Designer. So what we need to do now is just open a new document, and I'm just going to quickly make this 12 by 8 in a landscape format and just click OK. The size really doesn't matter too much. Now, to do this tutorial we need the Symbols tab. Now by default, I'm pretty certain it doesn't on mine, and this is a PC version. It may appear as a default in the Mac version, but by default Symbols tab is not visible. So the first thing we need to do is to make it visible. So we need to come up to View, then down to Studio, and then down to Symbols, and just click on that to put a tick in it, and it will open the Symbols tab. Now mine is over here on the left because I've dragged it out and put it here previously, but I'm pretty certain it will probably end up down here in the Transform History Navigator tab. It may be another tab down here. I couldn't swear to it. It's been quite a while since I've had this back on the default settings, but it'll either be in this section here or this section here, or like me, you could just drag it out and stick it somewhere over here on the left. So once you have your Symbols tab open and you have your new document open, let me just move this back to the middle. We just need to, first of all, we just need to draw our first circle. Now, if like me you possibly have a white background, to make things easier and more visible, you just really need to have, it can be any colour, but what I've gone for is I've selected greys on the Swatches tab, and I've just gone on to the 5% black option, which makes that the foreground colour. So then when I draw this circle, it's visible. But it's not that important as such, because it can be any colour, because we're going to recolour it anyway. So what we need to do is come down to the Ellipse Tool, or you can press M on your keyboard, and to sort of draw that almost perfect circle, what you need to do is hold down the Shift key and left click and keep the left mouse button, click down and drag out your circle, and it will stay in the perfect circle size. So I'm going to go for about that size there, and I'll just come to the move tool and I'll just nudge it over here slightly to where I want it. And then what I will do now is I'm going to duplicate this, so I'll just right click on that and come down to duplicate, or you can do Control and J. So you will now have a copy exactly the same above the lower one, and we're going to just reduce this in size. So I'm going to come to, it doesn't matter which corner you come to, I'm going to come to this top right hand corner, but I'm going to again hold down the shift key, and I'm just going to reduce this a fair bit, and then I'm just going to nudge it into the middle. Now I have snapping set on mine, so if I get the green and red cross like that, I know that that is centered. But I will just alter the size again slightly. I want a slightly bigger circle, so I'll just again hold down the shift key and then bring it back. So I've got my snapping line, so I know that that is centered. Right, so what we need to do now is we need to highlight both of these layers. So you can hold down the Control key and just click on the one that isn't highlighted. So both of them will be highlighted, and you have the inner and outer circle outline showing like that. And then along the top here we have these 5 buttons, which up until about now have all been, I think all but one have been greyed out, but the second one we want is subtract, and if you click on that it will remove the contents of the inner circle. And then if we come to the, we'll come to the swatches, and I'll come down to colours, and we can pick any colour, but sort of trying to stick to as closely to Rich Crowe's video. I'm going to make this one red, and once you have that set up like that, the next thing we want to do is to hold down the Control key and hang on, yeah, we're still on the move tool, yeah, hold down the Control key and drag out a copy of that red circle, and I'll position it roughly about there, and I'm going to change the colour of this one to blue, so I'm going to just pick that blue, and then again I will hold down the Control key and drag a copy of this blue one out, and I'm just going to visually position this so those areas in the middle are all roughly the same size, that area there and there. Let me just nudge this slightly. Yeah, I think roughly they're about the right size. So now what I would do is pick another colour for this, and again sticking to the original video, I will make that one yellow. So now we are up to this point. We want to, right, so now this is the point where we start to make these layers into symbols. So I will just start with the red one, so just click on the bottom red layer and come to your symbols thing and tab and click on the create button, and as you will see, this will convert that from the curves layer that it was to a symbols layer with a curves layer as the child of that layer, and it has put the red symbol into the symbols tab, that red circle I should say. So just highlight the blue, click on create, so I've got the blue symbol in there, and this has made a symbols group here, and then we just repeat this for the yellow. Right, now depending on where you've positioned your image on the screen, you may want to do what I'm about to do. You don't have to, but I'm going to just hold down the control key and click and highlight, so all of those layers are highlighted. I'm on the move tool, so I'm just going to move them all so they're a bit better centered and a bit more visually pleasing. But again, like I said, that's something you don't have to do. Right, so moving on, next thing we want to do is to have the foreground as no color, and to do that you can just click on this white circle here with the red line going across it, and it will make the foreground no color. And we're going to come back to the ellipse tool, and the I'm going to come to the intersection where the blue and the yellow circles overlap, and I'm going to just quickly draw an ellipse here. You don't necessarily have to hold down controls or shifts or what have you, because we just need to make sure that that circle incorporates all of the blue in that area and all of the yellow in that area where they intersect, but so you're not really grabbing any of the other color circles. So it was at this point where it got really confusing in the video, and I will just quickly run the video. If I bring this back up, so you can see this is roughly where I am at now, and when I click play you will see that Rich comes over to layers, and then he clicks a couple of times and he makes sort of a section of this area appear in the layer above. So I'll just press play here. So he comes to his layers tabs and he's moving around. It's on the move tool. He highlights the blue symbol and it just appears, this section. Now I couldn't work out how he was doing it, and I think this is where John was having his major problem. I'm guessing that Rich is using a keyboard shortcut, which is why I can't see what is happening on screen. And I had to try and work out how this was working, how it was happening, and the conclusion I've come to do is that he's duplicating the layer. So I'm going to click on this blue layer, I'm going to right click it and duplicate it, and then I'm going to click and drag this up to the layer, the ellipse layer at the top, and make it a child of the ellipse layer, and then you have that blue section appearing in the screen. So I mean, like I said, you can move this around. I just press Ctrl and Z to put it back, and what that has done is just put a section of the blue circle above the yellow, so it looks like the yellow is going behind. Now I can't see how Rich did that other than in some sort of keyboard shortcut, without doing like what I've done, go through the process of duplicating the layer and dragging it up into the ellipse layer. Someone out there can explain to me how he did that without having to sort of manually duplicate and move. I'll be sort of quite happy for them to explain to me how that happened. Maybe it's just available on the Mac and it's not available on the PC version. I really don't know, and I really can't explain. So basically what we need to do now is we are going to repeat this process. So we now have like the blue going over the yellow. So now we want to repeat it on this yellow area here that's going over the red. So I need to come back to the Ellipse Tool and just draw an ellipse. Let me just come to the Move tool, move this over the area I want it, which is there, and I want the red layer, so I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to drag the duplicate layer up and make it a child of the top ellipse. So now that red is going over the yellow. The next thing I want to do is to this red, and where the red and blue cross over here. So let me just come to the Ellipse Tool again, and I will just drag an ellipse over that area, and again I will highlight the red layer, duplicate it, and drag that up to the new ellipse and make it a child of that ellipse. So we now have the blue going over the red there, but under the red there. The yellow goes over the red there, under the blue, under the red, but over the blue over here. And the blue goes under the yellow, under the red, over the yellow, over the red. So that is basically that setup at this point in the video, and the next point in the video was where he is adding gradients to the various circles. So what we want is the gradient, and this is found in the Fill tool, which you can just press the G and you will have the gradient tool available. And what you need to do is to drop down the child of each of the symbols, and I'm going to start on the red. Just click that and make sure it's the red curves layer within that symbols group that is highlighted. And as you can see up here, at the moment the type is set to solid, and I'm going to come down to linear, and you can move this around to wherever you want, so it's lighter over here and darker over here. You can move the middle point, so you change at what point it starts to get darker or lighter, but I will leave that in the center there, so I can bring that one back up here, and then I will drop down the blues, click on the child curves layer. Again, we are still on the Fill tool. I'm going to then change the type to linear, and again you can move them around as you see fit. And once you're happy, come to the yellow, make sure it's the curves layer that's highlighted, and again pick linear. And that is the tutorial finished. As it was in Rich Crowe's original. So hopefully this has answered John's problems with the original video, and I'm hoping that Rich Crowe is happy with what I've done. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.